All right. Well, earlier in the show, not long ago, about 10 minutes ago, not even, I talked about burnout, right? We were talking about burnout within the realm of the physicians, doctors. And specifically, I looked at how it applied in that field. But anyone, really anywhere in any field, can ward off the symptoms of burnout, as we mentioned in that prior article, simply by leaning on your fellow teammates when times get tough. I mean, after all, you can't have too much togetherness in the office, right?
Right.
No. Actually, yes, you can.
Wrong.
And there it is right there, Derek. It says K at W. Knowledge at Wharton. Too much togetherness is the name of the piece from the wise teachers and thought leaders at the Knowledge at Wharton blog. And yeah, there it is. Too much togetherness is the name of the piece. And they make the case that continuing rise actually in cross-functional collaboration can actually have a harmful effect on workplace productivity and harmony. Even sanity, I guess, and it might even lead to burnout or add to burnout.
Really?
And the case they make here is pretty interesting, and I think that they're right. I think they have a good point here. So to understand the phenomenon a little better, I had to consider myself an old chestnut that I like to quote, or at least think about a lot when it comes to collaboration. If you want something done, give it to a busy person, right? You ever heard that one?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
I think about that all the time.
Right.
Many times I think about it for myself, but for others too. For me, that person is usually named Dirk, or Taryn, or Ryan, or Christopher, or Laurel, or Taryn, or April, or Jeff, or Christine. Or
basically everybody who works
Smith.
here.
Anybody, and everybody is busy. So you give that work to a busy person. Now, there's several reasons why the statement about giving work to a busy person is truly it's true more often than not. First of all, busy people are usually that way because why? Because they're really good at what they do. I mean, you don't get busy unless you're good at what you're doing, and therefore, coworkers, they want to give you more and more work. They're going to throw that at you. But there's another component to this, and that's the willingness of said busy person to want to take on more and more. I mean, for many, being the go-to guy or gal is like an ego boost, right? I mean, we've seen those people. I mean, many of us are those people, right? You're a multitasker par excellence. You take on everything, whether you want to or not. And for some, it goes even further. I mean, there's those whose very sense of self within the office really is tied up to being the role of the expert, right? In any number of functional areas.
The go-to person.
Yeah, that's my silo, that's what I do. You come to me anytime you have a problem with anything to do with this, right?
Right.
Well, when people have that kind of self-perception, it's really difficult for them to step aside and let others take the wheel every now and again. And that, you got to do that. You can't really own every process all the time. But if you're the kind of person that has that idea or ideal in mind that, hey, I'm the go-to, I'm the expert, I've been here 20 years, I know everything, the ins and outs, come to me at any time, people will take you up on that. And they will come to you every time, and you're going to be really frustrated and burnt out pretty quick. There's another thing here which was interesting. I didn't think about it until the Knowledge at Wharton team presented this in the piece. There's a gender component to this as well, which is interesting. Whether subconsciously or consciously, I don't know, and either men or women, men or women who have this perception, women in the workplace are sometimes seen as inherently helpful. The authors of the article cite some research that found that when a man stayed late to help colleagues, he earned a 14% higher rating than a woman who did the same. Okay?
Oh, interesting, okay.
Furthermore, when neither man or woman offered after-hours help, the woman was rated 12% lower. Men the same. Men got got dinged for that, not at all.
It's kind of like you're a woman. You're supposed to do this.
You're supposed to be helpful.
Okay.
You're supposed to be helpful. You're
nurturing.
You're supposed to do the birthday parties get the subs ordered and the cake and all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's not. But there's a perception of that out there. There's a gender difference there. And again, both men and women buy into that role in many cases. So what does all this mean as I thought about it? I mean, there's several things that came to mind as I read through this really, really fine article. One is, should we not be helpful because we're concerned about not getting to our own work? I mean, that's one thing they said is these people that are the super collaborators that want to jump in and everything often don't do their own work. Now, do they not do their own work because they don't want to? Is it like they're bored by their own job so they jump around and want to get into other things?
I think there's some of that.
Maybe there's some of that too. I don't know. But I mean, obviously you're not getting your own work done in many cases. I mean, another thing is collaboration great for the organization but bad for the individuals? And if so, is that a sustainable business model? I mean, if your people aren't productive and happy and feel satisfied, they feel like they're overwhelmed and burned out because they're jumping into all these things and collaborating too much. Is that sustainable? Can you keep doing it that way, or ultimately will you lose your best people over the course of time?
Right.
Is there still something to be said for the old top-down hierarchical management model? I mean, this collaborative thing is very much everybody buys in, you reach a consensus and you make these improvements and these agreements on how you're going to do things. Maybe the top-down model works better, where you have a selected few bosses who just say, do it. This is what you're doing. You don't worry about it. I tell you what to do and when, and that's it. You don't have anything else to worry about. Maybe that's a little easier for some people, maybe. And then there's this one. I mean, it's like, just throw this in at the end. What about work-life balance? You know, what the heck? I mean, you say yes to something. You got to say no to something else. And many people just say yes to everything at the office all the time. Yes, yes, yes. They never say no.
Right.
And what they're saying no to is their wife, their kids, their dog, their house, their garden, their car, you know.
Yeah.
So there's always a cost involved in doing any of that. So, you know, you have to think about that too. I mean, is the work-life balance going to get skewed if you're that type of super collaborator, you know, where you are office superhero doing everything, and maybe people love you in the office, maybe your bosses love you or not, maybe they don't anyway, but what else is suffering? Either the other stuff in your job or your personal life is suffering.
Right. That's meaty stuff. I mean,
it's a lot in that article to think about.
Well, because I think there's a lot going on there that we don't. I mean, you kind of touched on it, but you may not necessarily be aware that you're shuffling work off to the go-to person.
Right.
And the go-to person may, you kind of alluded to it, enjoy being the go-to person, so they take on this extra work, even though that really, in reality, they're probably got too much on their plate to begin with. I mean, already, but they don't recognize it.
Well, whose job is it? Whose job is it to organize that? Again, if in a hierarchical model, top-down model, it's the bosses, the few people to say, no, you have too much, you got to offload some to you, and you're going to do this. There's pros and cons to that. You feel manipulated, you feel managed, you have more ownership over your job when you and your coworkers can collaborate, but then you have these rough spots where some get more than others.
Or maybe you have the system in place that you have, but it's up to the boss to identify, okay, Laurel, we've already given you quite a bit. I know you're interested in this, but I want to give it to Taryn or something.
Or do that thing you really have a lot of energy about, but let's offload something else.
Let's offload something else, right.
You don't have as much energy
so
as something else could do.
It's still kind of their decision, but somebody is overseeing it to recognize that, wait a minute, we've really loaded this person up too much. They're not complaining, but it probably is too much.
It's probably too much. It really is hard to be the person to make that decision yourself.
Right.
Because again, of all the psychological factors that I mentioned, all the things that you want to be, and we all have ideals of who we are in the office, what we want to be. The reality doesn't always measure up. Your coworkers are like, well, that guy's always helpful, but he never completes anything, or he's scattered, or he's frustrated.
He was halfway through this project and went on to the next one.
Right. So I mean,
I never do
that. Many of us work in really small organizations, and you have to.
And that kind of goes with the territory in a way.
I'm saying you're always going to wear a lot of hats. I mean, I don't care if you're in small or big organization. If you're an accomplished person that has skills, you're going to be asked to do a lot.
Yeah.
And you have to yourself be able to pick and choose and understand. And there's some tactics they offer in there about limiting your time, like in meetings. You get in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's get to the really important meaty stuff you really need me for right away, and then I'm going to scram because I got other stuff I got to do. And that helps move the meetings along rather than a 2-minute pokey meeting. Well, maybe, what do you think? Take it offline. That's a better way to do it, maybe.
Yeah.
Save everybody a little bit of time.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
A lot of stuff there. Yeah, it's a good article.
It's a really good meaty article for the knowledge.
Well, it really applies because we are one of those organizations because we're small, and because everybody's got a lot of talent here.
Yeah.
Everybody just loads up on, and they do tend to load up on the things that they're good at and they're interested in, but they do load up. And I think
you're a person that does have wear a lot of hats.
But so does.
Well, we all do. But
we all do. But
when you have technical abilities, which are rarer in many cases, those are the people that tend to, rather than the soft skill people, the technical people with the hard skills are the one that tend to.
But that's actually a good example, is because I like the technical stuff. Right. It's like, throw me a technical thing. Oh, sure, I want to do it. And I don't even necessarily think about the fact that, okay, I'm going to take on this project, but what's going to happen to this other stuff, right?
Well, but the factor of like, if I throw you something and I have very little technical skill, I mean, I probably would be smart enough to eventually figure something out, but if it takes me 5 hours to figure it out and it could take you a half an hour to find a better solution,
right.
Why?
Why?
You know what I'm saying? I mean, even if you are pushing something back, why should it be 4.5 more hours out of the workday for somebody?
It's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act, yeah.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Good article there. I really enjoyed reading that one, so check it out yourself. All right.